Golden State Media Concepts Social Media Podcast. Time to hashtag everything. We talk about all the fun, crazy stories on social media. From Instagram to Facebook, Twitter to Tumblr, or probably even Friendster. Join us each week as we explore the quirky side of social media. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Social Media Podcast.
It's simple, such a sad song. The one that we rely on to get us.
Hey. Alright, welcome back to the GSMC Social Media News Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Now, I'm your host, Jose, and honestly, I'm really excited for this week's episode just because there's so much stuff we got to cover, and these things we're going to be talking about has been happening within the past couple of weeks or even like a month, but there's still like things or events that are still happening today. And the one in particular that I'm going to start off with is one of my favorites because it's all over social media right now, and still is, and that is a song that goes by the name of Driver's License. Now, I know a lot of people listening right now may have heard of the song Driver's License, and if you haven't, you should definitely look it up because it's honestly a pretty good song. But to a little backstory in what the song Driver's License is. It is written by a child actress from Disney Channel by the name of Olivia Rodrigo, and she was on a lot of shows on Disney Channel. It's called like Bizaardvark and like some other Disney Channel movies, and most importantly, she is on the new show called High School Musical. Hold up, let's see. Hopefully, I don't butcher this name here. Oh yeah, so it's High School Musical, the series. So it's a very complicated name. I think it's for comedic purposes only, but it's a very good show, and it's on Disney Plus. So it's not on Disney Channel at all. So it's only on Disney Plus. And she's been on that show with two other people who are crucial, actually, not important but crucial to the story. So the first one is Sabrina Carpenter and Joshua Bassett or Basset. I'm not sure to pronounce that last name in particular, but yeah. So three main characters of the story: Olivia Rodrigo, Sabrina Carpenter, and Joshua Bassett. And all three of them you're in it for a ride, I guess. Like, that's a little heads up. So, a little story here. During filming of the show, Olivia and Joshua were actually dating in that time. So, but eventually, they broke off, and they broke up, and Josh actually started dating Sabrina. And I know for sure that Sabrina and Olivia I think they were fairly close because they were in a couple shows together or just had a couple projects together on Disney, and so they were fairly close. But when Olivia heard that Josh and Sabrina started dating, that caused some sort of little bit of tension between both of them, and honestly, me too. So as a result of finding out about that news, Olivia made a song called Driver's License, and the premise of the song is basically this young couple talking about how, when I get my driver's license, we're going to be going here, we're going to be driving along the suburbs, and we're going to be making all these memories. But now since they broke up, she can no longer make those memories with him, and talking about like any missed memories that they could have made together. And a lot of people thought that these lyrics alluded to Olivia's real life, because there was a line in particular in the song that said, "You're probably with that blonde girl," and Sabrina Carpenter is blonde, and that led a lot of fans to believe that this is sort of like a little roast song for Sabrina, I guess, and eventually the song did blow up within it first came out. I believe like Spotify made like a whole what's that called? Like a little I don't know, a little section on Spotify about that song because it blew up within the first week it came out, and it got like 17 million streams the first week, I think, when it first debuted. And honestly, I didn't really listen to the song when it first came out, just because I'm that type of person who doesn't really listen to music when it first comes out. I don't know, I think I'm cool. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, it debuted at 17 million streams, and it just blew up all over social media, and so many people were listening to it. And eventually, that caused, with all the commotion, like fans constantly asking Sabrina if the song is about her, she eventually made a song called Skin, and a lot of people also believe that this is alluding to her version of this of a driver's license, or her side of it. So I haven't really listened to that song yet, The Skin, because it just wasn't really that popular, and like social media doesn't force it upon me, I guess, or like even the radio. But Skin talks about like basically that the boy was talking to her the whole time, and there wasn't like she shouldn't be worried, and there wasn't much going on or whatever, and it was really all over the place. And to be fair, it didn't really do as well as driver's license. So actually, I think I have the actual statistics. So Skin has 36 million streams in total, I believe. I think that's across all of. Oh no, that's just on Spotify. Yeah, it's just on Spotify. So 36 million streams. Sabrina Carpenter's song Skin, 36 million streams. Now driver's license, and honestly surprised me when I first looked at it. It has a whopping of 406 million streams. That's around 370 million more streams than Skin. Granted, Skin did come out a bit later or a bit after driver's license, but still, like within this time range, I don't know if it's able to catch up, honestly. But yeah, that is a big difference between all the streams, and that honestly just shows how like social media has such a big impact on songs like these. And yeah, it's been used all over like social media, like TikTok especially, and Instagram. I've seen it everywhere, people like mentioning the song. And even if you check out on the hashtag driver's license on Twitter, a lot of people are on that. A lot of people are getting involved and talking about the song. And recently, if you look at it, like I think like right now, you'll see a lot of like SNL stuff on it, because within this past, so actually right now it's the 21st, so I think yesterday, SNL did a recent skit about driver's license. So I think the premise, I've only seen clips of it on TikTok, but I think I got the premise of the whole skit. It was basically four dudes at a bar, and they're all acting tough. They're all playing pool, just a bunch of dudes chilling at the bar. And then driver's license starts playing, and a lot of them pretend like they don't know what the song is about. They're like, oh, maybe it's about this, or maybe what's the song is about? But in reality, a lot of the dudes like know what the song is about, and I honestly thought that was really funny. I definitely need to check it out soon, just because I love SNL and a lot of the skits, and I love driver's license, so I think it's gonna be really funny. But yeah, this song it's moved around a lot on various social media platforms, and a lot of people have their opinions on it, and a lot of people have an idea of what's going on. And it's, like, speaking of like opinions, it's honestly created a divide amongst the fan bases. So especially a lot of like Disney fan bases too, getting involved and talking about what they think it is. So like one side is siding with Olivia and saying that she has the full right to make the song, just because she's the one that got her heart broken, and she's the one that's able to make music like this. And the other side is saying that, well, she's overreacting and she shouldn't be making a song. She shouldn't be like doing this and keeping it private. And basically, some of those people are saying that. I believe are Sabrina Carpenter fans. But yeah, it's been able to make such a crazy impact between everyone, and it's to each their own, in my opinion. Honestly, when it comes to this song, honestly, to me, it's just a song, and a lot of these Disney Channel actors and actresses have the right to do whatever they want with, as long as they follow Disney guidelines, I guess, or whatever. But yeah, like they have the full right. They have the abilities to, because they have like their own record labels and stuff like that, and they have that popularity. So a song is a song. And yeah, driver's license is it's a good example of what an actress or actor can do to break out of that Disney Channel sort of thing. And yeah, and if honestly, if you haven't listened to the song yet, please try to check it out. It's definitely more of a love song. It's like a sad song, and that's why I think it resonates with a lot of people. Not saying a lot of people are like really sad all the time, but it's a heartbreak song, and a lot of people have probably gotten their heart broken. And that's why it resonates with a lot of people. And I'm not sure, like, especially with Skin, even though, like, that's not really a heartbreak song. It's basically talking about how I got this boyfriend from someone else, or something within those lines, I believe. Don't take my word for that. But yeah, how, like, she was able to get a boyfriend after this relationship, after he was just in a relationship. So I don't think a lot of people resonate with that, but with driver's license, it's a lot more relatable. And I forgot to add this, or I guess I'll just add it afterwards right now, that but a lot of the things, the details that I said, or even the story, is a lot of word of mouth, and a lot of people these are just assumptions. There's like none of the actresses or I guess artists have confirmed, not even Josh, he's not even a singer, but he hasn't confirmed anything about it. I think he made a comment on TikTok at one point, but like just fueling it, I guess, or hinting at it. But there was no real confirmation. There was no like verbal, hey, this song is about Sabrina, or this song is about Olivia. So definitely when looking this story up, take it with a grain of salt. Even though a lot of details support this sort of backstory about driver's license, still, like I said, take it with a grain of salt. Just because no one really confirmed it, I guess it's just a way for people to like make the song more interesting, in my opinion. And honestly, it does. Like, not a lot of songs have backstories to it. It's mainly just a lot of artists just write songs because they got inspired by the wind blowing through the trees. But like this one has like sort of like if it's true, it's a pretty deep backstory, and I think it also resonates with a lot of people just because like everyone who's listening grew up with Disney Channel, and seeing a bunch of like Disney Channel stars, I guess having a feud online really really ups the ante, or makes it interesting between everyone. And I honestly think, like, I'm not saying it should happen, but I'm not saying like this should keep happening between all like artists to make songs interesting. But I just think it's pretty interesting just because with their backstories too. Now, I did have to listen to Driver's License this weekend. Well, I didn't have to, but like I ended up listening to the song around 20 times this weekend. So in my next segment, I'm going to be talking about an event actually that happened here in the East Coast. It's called Thon, and it's fairly popular here just because it's part of Penn State University's organization, or it's an event that really defines the school. And I'm going to be talking more about Thon and how it sort of relates to social media, because within this year, there was a big part of it that relates to social media. And I will also kind of be mentioning why I did listen to Olivia Rodrigo's Driver's License for a big portion of that time. So, yeah, I'll see you guys in a bit after this quick break.
Do you want to be healthier, yet you just don't know what to do? All these shows telling you this and that, but nothing seems to work. Well, listen close. Golden State Media Concepts has got something great for you. The Health and Wellness Podcast, dedicated to workout trends, healthy eating habits, diet, and everything about healthy living. Join us in our banters as we help you not just live life to the fullest, but live it to the healthiest.
Alright, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. My name is Jose, in case any of y'all forgot, and I sort of left off last segment on a cliffhanger, talking about driver's license and why it was such a big impact on me during the weekend. And that was because I was a part of an event called Thon. And to those people who don't know what Thon is, basically it's a 46-hour fundraising event where students stand up for 46 hours straight, so no sitting down. And I believe it's the largest student run. It's the largest student run philanthropy. I'm not sure if it's exactly like in the world or in the nation, but we are considered the largest student run philanthropy. And yeah, it's basically to stand up against pediatric cancer, and being a part of this whole organization and being a part of it is a phenomenal experience, just because it's something I'm proud to be a part of, and it's for a really good cause. And seeing these families and hearing their experiences with pediatric cancer is truly moving. And now I guess to start off, I will relate this to social media later, like eventually, but I just need to build up to it. So a little background on what it is. So initially in 1973, sorry, a little history lesson here, but in 1973 it was at first a 30-hour dance marathon, but the next year, so 1934, it became 48 hours. And then eventually in 2007, it got cut to 46 hours because the Big Ten, so it's like a bunch of the surrounding schools here, so like Pitt and Penn State and like a bunch of other schools around here wanted to play basketball. So yeah, we got cut 2 hours because of basketball. Now, I don't hate basketball. I love watching basketball. But it's kind of, yeah. But yeah, so it got cut 2 hours, and it supports 4,000 families, both financially and emotionally. We all like financially and emotionally support them. And yeah, it's overall a great cause to be a part of, and I love it. And just seeing all the commodity between amongst the families and the students is truly something you'll see it once in a lifetime. You don't see it so often, and being a part of that sort of moment is truly great. And I actually want to give a quick shout out to Penn State and overall like all the students involved for this event during Thon, and everyone who donated, because overall like to those listening, treatment like is a lot of money for a lot of these families, and having support 4,000 families is, it's a great deal of money. And what made me really proud over this weekend or just in Thon in general, is because of how many students are able to raise money and donate for these families. And big shout out to Penn State and everyone involved, because we raised $10,638,078.62 for Thon. All of this will go to families and all of their treatments and anything they need help with, so no family has to worry about financial debt or anything like that. So yeah, it's definitely a good cause to be part of. And in past years, in terms of I guess marketing for donations and stuff like that, we've always had fundraisers in person, and we've always had classic flyers and of course, occasional social media use, and then we would also word of mouth amongst people, like, hey, come to Thon, or do this, donate to my donate to me so I can help support Thon, and do all these physical things. But now, because of the pandemic, we are very limited for when it comes to stuff like that, and that's why I kind of brought it up, because this year was so different when it comes to advertising. And one of the big ways that we advertised this year was through social media. So a lot of us use different social media platforms such as TikTok, Twitch, Instagram. Like, we relied heavily on Instagram, and sometimes a lot on Facebook too. So I kind of want to run down what we did in terms of social media marketing. So first off, Twitch. One of my favorite things that we did was we did a 24-hour live stream of me and a couple of other friends. I personally didn't do the 24 hours because I was busy with a lot of work, but some of the people involved in Thon did a 24-hour live stream on Twitch where they played games, and any donations that they got during that live stream would go straight to Thon. And yeah, I think honestly it was really cool to see people donate and people support things like that. And honestly, for me, I'm a big, not a big gamer, but I like to play video games, and having to connect video games with this whole movement with Thon. It was a great combination of both, and I had a lot of fun during the weekend and seeing all my friends and other students get involved with the live stream on Twitch. With virtual live streams, so we did a lot of virtual live streams with families. So we had, and with the virtual live streams, we had virtual game nights. So we would have, we would play Jackbox games, or we would play Scriblio and stuff like that with the families online. So we didn't have any physical contact with them. So we did a lot of virtual live streams. On Instagram, we advertised a lot on a lot of virtual events that were happening. So if we had a virtual movie night, immediately post that on social media. If we had a certain fundraising event that was actually in person, then we'd push that on social media. So social media was a very big factor into helping us get our donations and get us involved with Thon. And I just think it's really cool because, as I've said in my previous podcast, or I think I've just said this a lot in general, that social media is the new wave of marketing. No one is really handing out flyers at the park like, "Hey, come to my karate dojo and join in." It's more on what people see on their trending or what people see on their feed, and being taking part on that sort of quote unquote movement when it comes to this whole transition between COVID and virtual. It was really interesting to see, and we did a lot. We were constantly making content on to get donations. So Instagram, even I think we tried to push TikTok a lot this year, especially since it was popular. So in order to get club engagement with other students, we tried to do TikToks and things that were trending and get people relate people involved. And actually another event that we did was since it snows here in the East Coast and PA, we would, during this time around the year, to get fundraising, we would have a polar plunge. So people would jump in cold water, and there was basically a fee to jump in the cold water, and that money that we would raise would of course go to the cause. But this year is different since we couldn't find we can have people together. We had to do it at home. So if anyone here remembers the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge from a couple years ago, any money, or if in order to spread the word about the cause, people would dump cold water on their heads, and then tag or mention 3 other people, and that provided a whole chain of people to get involved and hopefully donate to the ALS cause. We sort of put that concept with ours, of course, not in a global or even national range. We just sort of did it locally to all of our close friends and family, and so we would have people either jump in cold water or jump in the snow, anything that sort of relates to the polar plunge, and that was a very different way on how we approached that social media aspect. Because we were so used to just doing it in person, we didn't really know how to do it through social media. So I think it turned out pretty well, and a lot of students got involved, and a lot of them with the cause, and it was overall just a great experience between all of us. And it definitely taught us new ways. If God forbid, it's not even another pandemic happens, but if a situation happens where we can't do stuff in person, we have found different ways to adjust and adapt to these situations and still make it work. We relied a lot on social media this year around, and even word of mouth, but virtually, to get others involved and engaged to make this work. And overall, I think it worked out pretty well. So I believe last year's total for Thon overall was 11,690,000, and this year, and that, remember, mind you, that was in person too. That was with everyone talking and everyone physically holding, standing outside of restaurants or someplace and getting money. So there was a lot of physical aspects there, or opportunities to get donations. But this year, since everything was virtual, we only relied on the online donation system, and of course, like other personal like donations and stuff like that, and some fundraisers. And of course, with like the circumstances that we had, being completely virtual and having a lot of limited opportunities, we were still able to match our last year's total. And that just showed me again, like the importance that social media has and the importance that it has on spreading the word or just information in general. And like with this opportunity, it was great. It could have, it couldn't have gone any better. And we were all really happy with what the result had. And personally, our satellite campus, not to flex, but our satellite campus got second place amongst the 10 others in the most donations. So, no flex, but yeah, like in terms of fundraising, it was another great way to get the word out. Like I mentioned before, we would usually have things in person. Like we would go canning, so we would talk to some businesses or restaurants, and we'd ask them if we can stand outside and hopefully get some donations. But now we found different ways to do things like that. So like I said, 24-hour live stream on Twitch. That was a great way to substitute some of the fundraising that we could have done or we missed out on if we were in person. And hopefully, say next year we're back to normal, and we still need to do fundraising. So we can can double. We have new ways of fundraising. So we can now, and of course now we can do a live stream that we never thought we could have in previous years. So having these new ideas come out of this whole situation is a great way to improve our social media presence and overall interactions with our audience. So it was great, and it was a lot of fun, and definitely going to try it out next year. And yeah, so moving on from this conversation, ironically, I do kind of want to backtrack a little bit just because I want to talk about my next segment. And this is something that happened, I guess, a month ago or just a couple weeks ago. And overall, it's a really interesting thing. And I want to talk about the stock market. I'm kidding. I'm not going to bore you guys, but it is about the stocks. So I don't know if some people have heard about this, but it's about GameStop and what really happened with that. So I definitely want to talk about the impact social media had on stocks or just the, I guess, economics in general. And I'm not going to go too deep into it just because, first off, I don't know a lot about stocks or economics, which is kind of ironic just because I am a business major and I probably should know stuff about this, but, to each their own. But yeah, definitely I will be talking about soon in my next segment, so hang tight for a quick second and I will be right back.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Alright guys, welcome back to the podcast. So, I left my last segment off with yet another cliffhanger. Wow, that's so weird. But, so I talked about the impact of what social media can have on stocks and economics. And there's two primary things that I really want to talk about during this section. I promise I'm not going to bore you because it's kind of like an interesting background. But The first one is Dogecoin. And Dogecoin, if you guys don't know, is the Shiba Inu dog that is a meme that was very famous back in like 2009. I don't know. I don't know how to to describe the meme because it was so versatile to use. It basically is just a dog with his like legs crossed in the front and him just like staring sideways into the camera. And it's very cute Shiba Inu, and I really love dogs like that. First off, and yeah, it was a very popular meme back then, and now like it's kind of died off within the recent years, but as of recently, someone decided to make it as a joke, or I guess the whole community did, and they made it in the form of cryptocurrency. So it's much like Bitcoin, but instead of Bitcoin, it is Dogecoin, and that was the name of the meme back then. It was called Doge. And yeah, so it's called Dogecoin now. And at first, it started off as just a joke. People were just like, okay, no one's gonna buy this. It's just because it's like the dog is in the cover of the coin. Yeah, no one's gonna buy it. It's just a meme. It's just a joke. But eventually, people love the joke or the meme enough where they actually decide to invest and buy money, like put money in it. And in the end, it did actually end up going up and making people money. So Dogecoin is a very interesting thing to keep track of because it's kind of like an underdog. Okay, yeah. All points aside, it was the underdog when it came to that, and with that background, it definitely had social media definitely had a big impact on that. And with that, I kind of also want to talk about GameStop. Now, this is a topic I'm not really too sure, I'm not too sure about, but I have a gist of it. So GameStop overall, it's just a funny story, I think. So the idea initially grew on Reddit, which is another social media site that, that has forums and whatnot. And people can converse on there, and if you have any questions or whatever, you can come on Reddit and just find anything on there. And yeah, it grew on that website, and Redditors, so people who are on that app are called Redditors. So they thought it was funny to buy GameStop stocks because it was going out of business. So with the rise of Target and Walmart and all these like big name companies like that who sell virtually a lot of the different types of products, they're running these smaller businesses out, not small businesses, but these like more specific based businesses like Radio Shack, for example. They were run out because Best Buy or even Target or Walmart drew them out because they sold that product. So yeah, and that's the same thing happening at GameStop. So GameStop is slowly dying off and slowly losing money because bigger corporations have the products that they have and sell at the same price with more convenience. And enough people actually invested in it, in that bigger business started to follow, but they sort of just used borrowed money, I guess, to invest into GameStop. And once GameStop crashed or fell, these bigger businesses lost the money. They lost the borrowed money in a sense, and smaller people, like individuals, did gain money just because they pulled it out in time and they didn't put in a lot of money like these other big businesses did. And it really showed how the impact of what social media can have on like quote unquote serious or quote unquote adult topics can have on the stock market. And it kind of interlinked social media culture with real life, especially with Dogecoin. How you wouldn't think a 40-year-old businessman living on Wall Street would invest in Dogecoin, something that was made out of a meme back in almost 10 years ago. So it really did show like how you can interlink social media with just like real, I guess, quote unquote, real life. And it essentially created a bridge with a younger generation of people. So I have friends who are actively constantly looking at the stock market and seeing the different prices of their different businesses. Like, oh, we're up 5% this week, or we're this one Tesla's down or something like that. And it's just really interesting to see because I grew up with these people, and they wouldn't really be the type to be in stocks, but social media really showed the way or paved the way, I guess, on bridging a younger generation with the stock market. So now there's way more competition. So, for example, like TikTok is like I mentioned on the last podcast, that it is basically a main way or a main place to get information. And stock market and investing is definitely a place is on there. And I constantly in my For You page on my feed, I just see these different accounts telling like tips and tricks on what to do, or like these are the 5 businesses you should keep track of within this week because they could go up. Um, and yeah, it's really cool to see having it's really honestly it's really cool to see all like these TikTokers and all these big name influencers reach out to a younger generation of people to get invested with the stock market. And it's definitely something that I personally have looked into. It's, I haven't done it, but it's definitely something that I hope to get involved in sooner, because of course, as the younger you are, the better it is. And yeah, and I think there's definitely a reason on why people get involved with the stock market, especially younger generation. And I think one of them is because, of course, money. And now, we live in a world where money, like a lot of things revolve around money. We got to be honest there, and especially college. So there is a lot of beneficial things in terms of finances that can help with students. So especially like tuition. My main thing is tuition. I've seen articles online where students have invested enough money into the stock market and gained it back, where they're able to pay off their tuition. Now, granted, I have seen the other sides of that story where, someone has lost all their money because of a certain business and it failed or whatever. And it's, there's definitely a risk, but when it comes to a younger generation of people, a lot of people focus on, getting that money, and it can help a lot. That's why a lot of people my age, in 20s, 18s, or something like that, young adults, are focused on this, are starting so early, so they don't have to pay so much loans afterwards. And also there is like that less risk as a young person. So now you can put in your whole bank account at 18 years old, which is like $500, and that's fine because you can earn that money back fairly quickly with your job at retail. And you still have a house, you live with your parents, some stuff like that. Like, you don't have to worry about a lot of different factors when quote unquote risking all your money. Let's say if you're older, living on your own, there's a bigger risk of losing all your money. And if you do lose your money, it's not like you can just wait and work. You still got bills to pay. You still have stuff to take care of. So there's a lot less risk when it comes to a younger generation, and that's why social media has really helped a lot when it comes to the stock market. And kind of loop back around to what I said in my first point, where it's kind of it interlinks a lot of different cultures together, like social media does. So yeah, I think it's really cool to see that, because social media is not only specific to one type of thing. It's available for everyone. It's basically the concept of marketing. Marketing is something that is needed for businesses, for people, for volunteer groups, and anything like that. And same thing goes for social media. You kind of need social media for a lot of different things to promote what your business is, or what you want to promote, essentially. And yeah, I just think, again, I think it's just really cool to see all this happen. And I honestly think it's just really funny with the Dogecoin thing, because at first I thought it was just, the name was just Dogecoin, because like someone just named it Dogecoin. I didn't know it was related to the meme itself, but like eventually in recent times, once as I grew older and I learned more about the stock market and like certain stocks and current, especially cryptocurrencies and stuff like that, it was really funny to see like Dogecoin and be like, oh wait, like make that connection, that like, oh, so this was the meme and people actually put money into this. And yeah, I just think I don't know, overall it's just really, really interesting to know, like to hear about and stuff like that. And other than economics, social media is also present on the complete opposite side of the spectrum, which is, fashion. Fashion is a very big thing right now, and having see new trends and seeing on social media can really help the fashion industry itself. So if you're like a small individual focusing on a very vintage outfit, you can find different ways on how people style that certain style on social media. And same thing goes for say Dior. Dior and Louis Vuitton put out stuff on social media too, where they advertise their products. Usually, you used to find you could find their products on little booklets that they would bring out to subscribers. But like now with social media, they heavily incorporate a lot of their advertising on that and make sure it reaches out to a greater demographic of people. And that's something. It's something very cool. As I mentioned before, social media is very versatile when it comes to being part of different aspects of life. So, like I said, economics. It's very seen as a very serious topic, and when you think of economics and stocks, you think of people in suits on Wall Street, and and that sort of lifestyle. But like when you think of fashion, you think of like high end or individualism, and either colorful clothes or just like clothing in general. So social media has a presence within all of those things, and I just think it's really interesting and it's really cool to see all of that happen and being a part of this sort of, I guess, that transition into the part where social media becomes way bigger than it is now. So being a part of that is really, really cool, and yeah, I'm super excited for what it has for the future, and yeah. So I sort of designed the next segment of this podcast. I don't want to sound conceited, but like a little bit about me, just because since I am a new voice here and not a lot of people know about me, I kind of want to get the audience to know, or you guys know about me a little bit more, and what better way to talk about the one thing you guys are listening to. So, I definitely want to talk about, my history with podcasts, why I listen to them, and why I even like to make them. And there's a lot of backstory to that. There's a lot of reasons on why, and I feel like I have somewhat of a story when it comes to talking about podcasts. But yeah, I will be talking about that within my next segment. But first, we're going to take a quick break. And yeah, I will see you all in a minute.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now. Don't bother. What's hot on Netflix and everything in between. That's gsmcpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
Alright, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Yeah, I guess we're on the last segment, and I definitely want to talk about one of the main reasons why I enjoy podcasts so much, and I will relate this to social media in general later, but I just want to give a quick backstory on just about myself as a host and a listener. So, when it comes to listening to podcasts, I honestly think it's a great way to pass time on your own. So say if you're on a long road trip with your family, or if you're just in a car ride for a long time, sometimes listening to music can can be overdone and it can be boring. So definitely listen to podcasts is like a new way for me to pass time, just because it feels like you're listening in a conversation with someone else, or even being part of it, having to sit with your own thoughts and sort of contributing to the conversation in your mind. It's definitely a cool way to pass time. And for example, I used to work retail, and during work I would listen to podcasts during my breaks. So, I was very limited on time. I only had a certain, 15 to 30 minutes of break time. And, sometimes usually people would just listen to music and sit in the back on the break. But for me, I would make the most out of it and listen to comedy podcasts, because it can help a lot with just passing time, and it makes work a lot more enjoyable. Like, honestly, I think that was like a highlight sometimes of work, just because I was able to have so much fun sitting in the back, grab a bag of Wendy's and put on, a David Dobrik's podcast on the back and listen to that, and just, relax for a little bit, and, sometimes give get a little laughs. So it's definitely a good way to pass time, especially in a work situation where, you don't really feel like listening, and you don't know what else you want to listen to, but, you don't want to watch videos also. So podcasts is a great way. And honestly, I just thought it's this idea, like, right now. It's kind of like reading a book, but, like, you're not really it's like more like an audiobook, but it's more of like a free audiobook, like free willing audiobook. So, like, there's no, you don't have to read anything. There's no structure. There's no story, like sometimes, but, listen to podcasts, like listen to an audiobook, in my opinion. And then, I love, honestly, listening to audiobooks too, because I can't read. I'm just kidding. But yeah, in terms of making it honestly, it requires minimum work, but, like, in a good way. So, like, hopefully I'm not phrasing that in a negative light, but, like, it's say if you wanted to make a cooking tutorial video, or a, how to ride a skateboard video, these types of different, these videos require a lot of editing and a lot of timing and a lot of, hard thoughts, I guess. What's this good angle here, or, like, does that edit or transition go with that one? So, but with podcasts, it's a lot more free, and you're able to do stuff on the fly, and you don't have to worry about certain editing, or you don't have to worry about anything else other than just the conversation itself. And I think that's what makes podcasts, like, the creation portion of it, like, a lot of fun. So it does require, like, not a lot of, like, I guess it definitely requires still a lot of work, like, making conversations, thinking of topics, and, saying, like, planning what you got to say. But, like I said, it's a lot more free willing, and it's a lot more, it's just a lot more enjoyable when it comes to the process. Yeah, and, like I said, like, with the YouTube videos, it can be complicated with, like, a lot of moving parts. And I've personally have experience with video editing, and with my experience of video editing with podcasting, I feel like I'm more relaxed a lot of the time when it comes to making podcasts, because I don't have to worry about, like, certain transitions, or, did I type this word correctly or something like that. So it's definitely a lot of fun. And yeah, with that, it's podcasts can have, both listening and making podcasts, these podcasts can have a very simple topic, but it can be the most intricate way of how you can go with the conversation. So, say if you just want to simply talk about Instagram, there's a lot of ways you can bridge upon that. So you can talk about, like, certain algorithms or certain demographics there are on social media. So there's a lot of things going on when it comes to that, and having a podcast can allow for different conversations. And honestly, having a podcast is just like talking to someone else. But with this podcast, of course, it's individual, but still, it feels like I am talking to someone. And that's what the most fun thing is about having a podcast, is basically just talking to myself, but, in a fun way. And the reasons why I wanted to have my own, there was a lot of reasons why that, that pushed me into making it. So first off, it's like, so I can have friends. No, I'm just kidding. So it's for me to essentially explore people's experiences and share them to the world in a more positive way. If someone had like a very life-changing moment and made them realize something good, it's definitely a story that I want to promote or tell on my podcast. I have like this sort of mentality that like everyone has a story to tell, and I feel like I should be like the one to like, I guess, promote it or show other people these amazing stories that these people have. And I'm like, yeah, and it's really cool to see that like all the different experiences that my friends or just people I don't really know that well have and explain to me. And that's what sort of like made me realize like, oh, like my friends have really cool stories to tell, and like what, like, and how are they gonna like reach this out to other people? Like, it obviously moved me, so how can I move other people, or how can they move other people too? And it's like a podcast is pretty cool, and that came to mind. And overall, like I thought a lot of my friends had like funny conversations. I'm like, wow, we should really record some of these conversations because like they're actually kind of funny. And I'm like, and that sort of trailed off and like thinking, what about a podcast? I enjoy content creation, and what better way to do that to mix my desire to make content with my conversations with my friends. So lo and behold, a podcast was made. And honestly, the podcast allowed me to talk to people I never thought I would. Because like, I never really was a talkative person back then when I first started making my podcast. So actually I made my podcast, started it on my own back in my senior year. It was like the beginning of senior year, and overall throughout high school or just in school in general, I was the type of person that would like actively try to avoid public speaking because I get so nervous. Like, there's some people who are like naturally good at public speaking, but like me, nope, not at all. So I would like try to avoid it, and by the time senior year came, I was like, you know what? I need to like, I can't stop like, chickening out and avoiding all these like public speaking opportunities, because there's gonna be way more in my life. And before college, I want to kind of like establish that. So making this podcast really did help me with my public speaking, and I guess conversing with other people. And with that, I was able to talk to new people that I never thought I would have, or I would have reached out to them, or they reached out to me, and I would have held like a normal conversation, which is really cool because I wouldn't have been able to hold a normal conversation with someone I don't know, 5 years back. So yeah, I thought that was like a really cool thing, and like, and having to hear these new stories from these people I don't really know made me like more motivated to make more podcasts, because like, I thought it was just really cool. And yeah, I get to know these people outside of school, like more than just a face that I see when I'm walking around. Like, they've actually genuinely became a friend of mine, or they've had stories that really like made an impact in my life, and I thought that was really cool. And yeah. And overall, the podcasting is just a big, great learning experience for me, and it's something that I'm glad I did. I'm really glad I did it, because a lot of people like didn't. Not gonna lie, a lot of people did doubt me when it first. Not a lot, but like some people did doubt me when it came to podcasting. Like, oh, you make a podcast? What are you gonna do? Like, blah blah blah. And like, so what? It's just a lot of fun. And eventually, like, yeah. Eventually, it just became noise, and yeah, it became a learning experience to me now, and it has brought me to this moment recording this podcast, and it was great. And yeah, I'm supposed to relate this to social media, because podcasting and social media are related. Say if you were to watch a late night show with Jimmy Fallon, you see a commercial for it like an hour beforehand. It's much like that when it comes to podcasting and social media. So social media is like the commercial where it sort of broadcasts your podcast. Wow, can't believe that rhymed. And you are able to promote your podcast on social media as if it were like a commercial. So when it comes to me, whenever I have new episodes, or what I'm planning to do with more episodes of this podcast comes out, I'm planning to promote it more on my Instagram stories and even Facebook, and reach out to new people, because I don't honestly I don't really use Facebook that often, which is a really missed opportunity, because I have I won't say I have a lot of friends on there, but I have a lot of people who don't really know what I do outside of you know, school and stuff like that. So it's definitely a new way for me to gain a new demographic when it comes to podcasts. So, like I said before, social media is like marketing, and basically you're marketing your podcast when you promote it on social media. So it's definitely something I gotta try out more when it comes to Facebook and Instagram, and I definitely have to try out Twitter. Twitter is something I'm still kind of getting used to, which is like, I used to be active on it when I was younger, but now I don't really use Twitter that much. But it's definitely something I need to try out. And for sure, I really want to promote the podcast, or anyone should just promote their podcast on TikTok, because the amount of podcasts I've seen on TikTok is great. Like, I don't really see it as competition, because a lot of people have different genres that they talk about. Some people talk about makeup, or some people talk about like social media or anything like that. So I don't really see it as competition. I see it as more of like a community that I'm becoming more of a part of. But a lot of individuals or groups are promoting their podcast on TikTok, and seeing all the comments and seeing all the reactions to it. People are like, "Oh my goodness, your podcast's so funny. I listen to it all the time," or "You guys are so relatable," or "I love what you did this episode. It was so funny," or "It was so cool." And I feel like having to promote your podcast in video format on TikTok is the best way to advertise your content. And honestly, if you think about it, like, if you promote something on social media, it's literally free marketing. It's free advertising. But yeah, it's definitely something I gotta try out. And TikTok, as I mentioned, it's always honestly, it goes back to TikTok all the time. But like I mentioned before, you get information so fast on that app, and what better way to get fast information than to promote your podcast? So there's many different outlets or different ways to promote your content with so many different social media platforms. I feel like I'm missing another form of social media. So the Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. Also Snapchat too. I do promote my stuff on Snapchat, and I have people interacting, and I have people are getting back to me when it comes to podcasts. So like people like, "Hey, I enjoyed the last episode." I feel like Snapchat is a more one-on-one basis when it comes to reactions or interactions with your audience. Say say again with TikTok, you get more of a broad idea of what people like and people like to hear. And yeah, but when it comes to Snapchat, since it's more like I have to add a friend first, then they can see what I post. It's more like one-on-one, and you get that individual reaction from someone, so if they like it or not. So that could be a really, really good way to get your analytics to a more like specific thing. So if you want like a really broad, like, "Hey, is this topic good for people?" And if you get on you post on TikTok, you get positive reviews, and that's good. But if you want to like get a more specific, like, what about this topic did people like about, then you should promote it on like Snapchat, or like say an Instagram private story, just because you can get like that really one-on-one basis or like specific reaction from someone. So yeah, there's definitely a good way to relate podcasts with social media. And yeah, I think that's actually what we have all for today. So I just want to say thank you for listening to the GSMC Social Media News Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. And yeah, definitely make sure to subscribe to the show and follow us on Spotify, and even on Apple Music, I think Apple Podcasts too, and any other social media platforms that we're on. And please, give us some feedback. Let us know let us know how it was, and leave a nice review if you want. It really helps me as a podcast. So yeah. And if you can, please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And again, thank you, and I will see you all in the next episode.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Social Media Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.